Paint-on-glass animation is generally regarded to be one of the most difficult and rarely seen forms of animation. The idea here is that you get a sheet of glass and you start pushing around slow-drying oil paints to create images and frames within the animation. It requires a huge amount of diligence and visualization, and thus is rarely used. In spite of its name, paint-on-glass animation is best defined as a technique for making animated films by pushing around some kind of wet medium directly under the camera and recording it frame by frame. As the medium is pushed around directly under the camera and recorded frame by frame, each image seems to merge from the previous one and melt into the next, resulting in a movement that can be very fluid and organic, a continual process of metamorphosis. The painting process itself resembles painting on a canvas, as the initial paint is added with brushes or other tools including sponges, cotton buds, small sticks, strong tissue, or even fingers. As the paint medium will be reused from frame to frame, the artist is constrained to work with slow-drying paint media like oil paint, but they can be substituted with other paints like watercolors or acrylics mixed with glycerin in order to keep working with the medium across for several hours or even days. In the case of paint-on-glass animation, the artist is working directly under the camera. The artist has to record the current frame before proceeding to the next one, as current artwork is continuously destroyed for creating each new frame. When a sequence has been filmed, there is no raw material left besides the final film. The complicated and messy nature of this technique is probably the reason why so few people utilize this technique nowadays, especially in commercial art. But this hasn't always been the case. Paint-on-glass animation used to be quite a popular animation technique during the early 80s and 90s, especially in Eastern Europe. A well-known practitioner of the paint-on-glass animation technique is the Russian animator Alexander Petrov. His most famous work is the award-winning short film The Old Man and the Sea, made in 1999, which took 2.5 years to complete and is the longest paint-on-glass animated film ever made. Quite possibly the most well-known user of the paint-on-glass animation technique, he is also the most successful one. There are no other animators that would use this technique to a level as Petrov does. Each frame of his animation looks like a separate oil painting. He had his own twist on this technique by using a number of glass sheets positioned on multiple levels to add depth to his animation. Through the years, he finished a number of short movies, his latest work being a promotional video for Paralympics Games in 2014. But after that, he was unable to find funding for his projects, resulting in stop in his career. Although Petrov is undoubtedly the one who made paint-on-glass technique so famous, there were many other animators before him using this style of animation. Witold Giersch was one of the first animators to use this technique as early as in 1959, producing many short films for the next 30 years. He can definitely be named as one of the pioneers of this technique, but unfortunately, it's hard to find many of his works online. Of course, we can't forget about the influence of Caroline Leaf, an amazing animator that used many different techniques besides paint on glass, like sand animation or hand etching on film stock. All of her techniques have been described as having fluid transitions. Her art reflects her often dark narrative content. She claims that she is a storyteller first. Everything else in her animation is made for the benefit of the story. Some of her greatest works include The Street, made in 1976, short animated movie which kickstarted her career as an animator and landed her a job at National Film Board of Canada. But enough about the past, let's talk about the present. Considering how much the technology has advanced and how we can basically achieve the same effects of this animation technique using digital animation, is paint-on-glass animation even used nowadays? The answer to that is yes, but also no. We can find many short animations using this technique, but it is usually done by small artists that only experiment with this technique. It is rare to see anything done by a professional animator or used in animated movies. However, this proves that people still find paint-on-glass animation appealing enough to use it for their animations. There are even whole YouTube channels that post only content related to paint-on-glass animations. Video platforms like YouTube or Vimeo are full of small animations made by those who want to share their passion about animation with others. This is also where I found one of my favorite artists that used this technique, Karine Calif, a visual artist based in Canada. She's a perfect example of a modern animator, working freelance, participating in different projects, most known for her music videos using the paint-on-glass animation. Her works have their own unique feel and each animation seems like it's flowing with the music. Karine would describe the whole process of painting as very physical and organic, basing the whole animation on rhythm and responding to the music with animation like it's a dialogue and letting it flow freely. However, the greatest example of how paint-on-glass animation can be adapted in modern media is the work of a Japanese animator that specializes in this animation technique, Miyazato. Besides making many short movies as well as music videos, her greatest achievement was being a part of the team that animated Mob Psycho 100, a popular Japanese animated series that experiment with many different techniques. And in 2015, the director brought Miyazato onto the project as a regular animator to create some of the characters, as well as making the whole ending sequence. This is something that has never been seen before. It's quite surprising to see paint-on-glass technique used in such an iconic production that is known worldwide. The fluid style of this technique contrasts perfectly with the anime style, and was used here to portray some of the ghosts that appear through the show. The director of the show was so impressed with the style of Miyazato's animation that he also hired her for the ending sequence that appears by the end of every episode of the season. This can be counted as a huge success of paint-on-glass animation and a great way for other people to learn about it. Now that we spoke about the past and the present state of paint-on-glass animation, we need to talk about the future. Personally, I believe it has a great potential to be used in bigger works and animated movies, and it is something that I would definitely like to see more in the future. But it is also a difficult and time-consuming technique, and I see why some people don't find that appealing. This type of animation can be considered messy, as there isn't very much planning involved. You just go and painting on a sheet of glass without a way to trace your steps, drawing freehand and instantaneously under the camera. But this is also what makes this technique fresh and unique, because you're never sure how it's going to turn out in the end.